is called biological farming and gardening. We started originally working the soil. This is a sandy soil, as you can see, but we originally started working the soil here conventionally with fertilizers and that kind of stuff. And it works well. Fertilizers work well. And we produced our own corn, and we built this trellis for grapevines, and we just started little by little adding things. And this is what the grapevine looks today. I took that picture yesterday, and it's fall up here, so the leaves are dying back. But this grapevine will produce about 400 pounds of grapes a year, and originally looked like this. So if you just start grapes in 2 or 3 years, they'll start producing grapes for you, and until they produce a lot. We do have a tractor and that we use here. We don't use it a lot anymore, but we do use it. And we planted, these are potatoes, and on the left side, these are tomatoes. And this was our garden spot. Today, we have an orchard planted here, but we produced quite a bit of potatoes, and we put them up, and we ate on them all year long. And they're beautiful potatoes, and it's really thrilling to see that. When you grow something yourself, you really feel like you're part of God's kingdom in producing food, and it's just beautiful. This is my beautiful wife. We've been married 47 years. We also, now we've been here now for 32 years, and we also put in a water tower. Now, why would we do that? Well, we get our water for our farm with solar panels, and all of our water comes right out of the ground. These solar panels pump the water out of the ground, put them in the tower, and the tower produces our water pressure for the farm. And then we have, this is 50 foot high, and then we have this silver tank that produces higher pressure water for the house. And we have a 24-volt pumping system that works off of the sun and that puts pressure into the house. And this tank on the right holds 1,600 gallons. The tank on the left holds 600 gallons, and the tank in the air holds 1,000 gallons. So we have quite a bit of water. We have also a backup water system that works off of 24 volts. 240 volts. It comes from the power. So that's just a backup system. So we have 3 systems so far, and we want to add a 4th. Water is significantly the most important thing you can do. We also added a large greenhouse. That's my wife standing in front of this greenhouse. It has a top vent system, and you can see how big it is compared to her. We poured concrete walkways in there, and then the centers you see has growing beds. We took all of that sand out, dug it down 2 feet, and added compost, and we began growing our food inside of this and selling it. This is cucumber vines, and you grow them straight up on trellises. That vining system right there produces a lot of cucumbers. There are papayas here in the center. We grew. In fact, is this greenhouse, we didn't buy our food ever again. I mean, it was a rare thing we ever bought any food. It's like once we started the greenhouse, we started producing almost 100% of our food. And tomatoes we grew, peppers, all kinds of greens and lettuces, salads, everything. And this was after I retired that we started doing this. Then when we were doing this, it was kind of a strange thing that should be adding people, I guess. It's a strange thing that we came across was the fertilizer was costing us, and then we were spending $300 a week in pesticides that we were spraying these vegetables with organically approved pesticides, and it caused a problem. And that problem was that we were making about the same amount of money it cost us to grow it. So we weren't actually earning any money. And I was thinking, if we have to do this for the rest of our life when we can't buy or sell, what are we going to do? How can you how can you grow food and you have to be dependent on fertilizer and pesticides, herbicides, fungicides? How can you grow food and during this process, during the time of trouble? We all know it's coming very soon. And fact is, these last few years of events on COVID-19 and all of the other things that have been going on around the world, we know that something is about to happen and we need to get ready. And so my wife and I were praying through this, saying, what do we need to do to get off of our dependency on fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, all of these chemicals, and grow things naturally? And we were really praying through this, and the Lord led me to a convention. It was called the Acres USA. It was a conference on ecological farming. So I went to this convention, and they actually take the approach that there's 3 or 4 different types of growing systems. And number one is conventional, where you use conventional fertilizers and conventional pesticides. Then the next one is organic, where you use only organic fertilizers and organically approved pesticides. Now, the problem with organically approved pesticides is that they're very, very expensive, $300 a quart. And you have to use a different amount each week, not a different amount, but a different type each week. So this week we would be using one kind, the next week we'd be using another, because the bugs get accustomed to it and they don't die when you spray it on them. So they were saying, then there is the hybrid system, and the hybrid system was where you use conventional fertilizers and only organically approved pesticides. Now, organically approved pesticides are not as bad for you as conventional pesticides, but they're all bad for you. Now, the last growing system, the last one was biological. When I went to this convention, and if you guys get a chance, you ought to go. And in fact is, if you will Google Acres USA convention, you will be brought to a site where you can go to this convention. You know how like the Adventist Agricultural Convention? Well, this is like 5,000 farmers from all over the United States moving in different directions, going from conventional to biological farming. And this transition, all during this convention, they were talking about 1 or 2 ladies. The first one was Dr. Elaine Ingham. And this was over and over again, they were bringing up this lady. Dr. Elaine Ingham says this, Dr. Elaine Ingham says that. And then they were bringing up another lady's name, and this other lady's name was Dr. Christine Jones. Now, Dr. Elaine Ingham is a PhD soil microbiologist, and so is Dr. Christine Jones. Dr. Christine Jones happens to be an Aussie from Australia, and Elaine Ingham she's actually from Minnesota, but she was teaching at the Oregon State University. Both of these women teach you how to grow without any chemicals whatsoever. So I looked her up, Dr. Elaine Ingham. She was going to have a class. So I took the class in soil microbiology from her. It's 4 semesters long. And the first thing she discusses, what is the difference between soil and dirt? And she says dirt is the absence of all microorganisms, and soil is a living organism with all the microbiology in it. So she said that what we have today in our farms is dirt because we've used so many chemicals on it. We've killed all the microorganisms in the dirt. And what we have to do is follow the example of forests. And she said, when you go into forests, nobody fertilizes them, but they grow beautifully. And you don't have an unbalance in this. So she says, when you go in the forest, there's complete harmony with everything. And she says there's fungi that are living in the forest, and she taught us how to harvest them. You see this white stuff in here in the source, the forest floor. This is a fungi that we have been taught through her lessons on how to harvest. And when you look at, you move the leaves, and under it is humus. And in this humus, when you look closely, you see the white specks. These are microorganisms. And I keep having to admit people, Sharon. I don't know if you can do that, but it's kind of distracting to keep clicking on admit.
Sorry, I'm doing the admission, so don't worry about the admission. I'm doing
okay, don't worry about the admission. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, you see these little white specks. They're actually fungi spores. Now, fungi are like the mushrooms. When you see mushrooms, they're mycelium fungi, and they're growing in the forest, and they break down things. Well, she taught us how to take these and extract them and put them in our gardens and replace all the broken soil that we call dirt today and turn it into soil. You see how when you look at it real close with this, you can see all of these spores. Now, we decided to grow with these spores. So we went out in the forest. I went out in the forest. I took this soil, I extracted them, and I spread them into my rows. And there's certain plants that grow really, really good with it, and some plants not as good. But you can see this Asian eggplant is growing really, really well with absolutely zero fertilizer, none, absolutely no chemicals were used in this. Now, you'll look at the cucumbers on the right, the vining of the cucumbers. They didn't do quite as well, but they did well. And I'm going to show you some of these. Now, this is the Asian eggplant. It produced so much Asian eggplant, I couldn't even sell it all. We had that much in these rows. It grew beautiful lettuces and peppers and all kinds of things. You see these beautiful lettuces, aren't they lovely? They're just gorgeous things, and we would sell these things, and we had to use, from that point on, never another chemical. Beautiful. Now, potatoes. Now, here's a video. I'm going to show you a video of potatoes we grew recently in this garden bed of biologically rich soil. All right. This was done for our grandchildren to show them. Now, when you grow potatoes, you wait till the vines die. And so it looks kind of dead when you look at this. The potato vines will die, and then they're ready to harvest.
Okay, this is a potato plant. And you'll notice that Grandpa is going to pull up the plant, and you get to see.
It's wet right here.
Where you put the thing on. Oh, look at that potato. Look at it. Look at all the potatoes that were in that, under that bush. Isn't that wonderful? Here they are. Look at all those potatoes you can get off of one little bush.
This is all wet soil.
Well, that's what I was digging in before. Look at it.
I don't understand that. This is the only spot that's, no, it's wet there. I didn't turn it on last night.
Oh, you didn't? I thought you did. Okay, so this is part. Okay, this is a.
So these are the potatoes we got out of that spot. Isn't that beautiful? And they were large. And the funny thing about growing potatoes with biology is that they last longer in storage. Now, these are our cucumbers that we grew with fertilizer, okay? And you see how bushy it is? And now think about this. That row, which is 136 feet long, would produce 200 pounds of cucumbers every single day. Now, what I want you to look at is the cucumbers that are grown on biology. They don't look as healthy, but they are actually completely healthy. These are what they call pickling cucumbers, but they didn't produce as much. They produced 100 pounds per day per row. But they're very, very high in nutrition. You see the the flower, there's certain stages. You see the flower there, and then a little cucumber, and then a big cucumber. If you have to pick these cucumbers every single day, that little cucumber tomorrow will be the size of the big cucumber. That's how quickly they grow. And they produce a lot of cucumbers on a single vine. But these were all grown using the biology right out of the forest. Now, here's another aspect. All right, so some things grow better with fertilizer, and some things grow better with biology. But that doesn't mean you should grow with fertilizer. Now, the reason why I say that is we need to wean ourselves from a dependency on chemical fertilizers and chemicals altogether, because one day we're not going to be able to buy and sell. So you need to learn how to grow without it. These plants that Nan is touching, my wife is touching, were grown with fertilizer. Now, when you look at the ones she's sitting in, these are biologically grown zucchini squash. Can you see the difference? And in fact, each squash plant was producing about a bushel during its life, a bushel of zucchini, each one of them. And they're lush, and not one chemical was used to grow these. So Ellen White says this: in the cultivation of the soil, the thoughtful worker will find that treasures. Let me get rid of this picture here. Okay, that treasures little dreamed of are opening up before him. No one can succeed in agriculture or gardening without attention to the laws involved. The special needs of every variety of plant must be studied. Different varieties require different soil and cultivation, and compliance with the laws of governing each is the condition of success. So you should study, and it's important to use scientific methods in all of this. Here's our grapevines, and if you have a tree, like a fruit tree or a grapevine, and you say, okay, I want to quit feeding it fertilizer and I want to start feeding it biology, it takes about 2 years before it will go 1 year with zero grapes. Fact is, I quit fertilizing. I started injecting microorganisms into the soil around these grapes. And the first year they produced nothing. Now they were producing about 400 pounds. This grapevine system was producing about 400 pounds a year. Then it produced nothing. And she told us in this class that this is what would happen. The next year we got about 100 pounds from it. And the following year, then we got a full complement of grapes. These are grapes called muscadines. This happens to be a red one. We have different colored ones, but this is what they look like under the vining, and they are really, really delicious. We like our grapes, so I put in 32 more, and I put them on a different trellising system, and this is when they're young, but this is what they look like, young. And if you look real close, you can see some grapes on these young ones. These are 2 years old, this is actually 3 years old at this time. And you can see the grapes are starting to grow really, really well this first year that they produce. And there's 32 new vines here. And by the time we get through growing them and they get to be adults all the way growing, we'll produce a couple thousand pounds of grapes with these 32 vines. Now, we have 2 pear trees, and this is what they produce basically yearly. And this was growing on the conventional growing system. This is what the pears look like. Today, we have them fully converted over to biological growing with absolutely zero chemicals, and they produce hundreds and hundreds of pears, and they are delicious. when you grow biologically, the left side was grown biologically. This is a grass. The right side was grown with fertilizer. This is soybeans. On the left side is grown with biology. On the right-hand side is grown with fertilizer. This is grass again. The left side is fertilizer. The right one is with biology. On the right field, this field was grown. This is a pasture with done with fertilizer on the right-hand side and biology on the left-hand side. And you can see how lush the grass is. It's just, and it produces a lot of roots. When you grow biological, it changes the root structure and it makes it more complex and many more root fibers. This is the grass. It's beautiful. And they were in a 5-year drought where they weren't getting hardly any rain in Australia. This is in Australia. That's some beautiful grass in a drought. And cows were really healthy on it. Now, on the right-hand side, this is growing with biology. On the left, it was with fertilizer. And you see the difference in roots, the amount of roots grown biologically versus in conventional fertilizer on the left. The root system on the right-hand side is biological. The root system on the left-hand side is with fertilizer. And on the left-hand side, these strawberries are biologically grown. On the right-hand side, these are conventionally grown. If you grow a field of corn and you give it all the nitrogen it wants, and it will grow very little root structure. But on the right-hand side, it was treated with the mycorrhizal fungi, and it grew without any fertilizer whatsoever. The root systems are much more complex, and the mycorrhizal fungi actually is that shadowy look around that root system. And it actually is breaking down the soil and feeding those plants. We also have a little greenhouse. This is our little one, and it's really called a hoop house. The difference between a hoop house and a greenhouse is that a hoop house has no heat in it, no artificial heat, and a greenhouse has a heater in it. And this is what we actually started growing in it. Fig trees. Now, the reason why we're going to grow fig trees in here is because fig trees, when you start growing fig trees can't handle, when they're young, they can't handle any frost. But once they get to be a big adult tree, then they can handle almost anything you throw at them. So what we're going to do is leave this hoop house over the figs until they get to be big. And once they get to be adult trees, then we're going to take this hoop house out. We also have one orange lemon tree in here too. I'll show you that. Now, what you see in here is that I seeded it with flower seeds. Now, there's a reason for that. And this is what it looks like with flowers in it. Now, a lot of people think, well, you can't grow things so close together. You look at this fig tree, and it's growing up nicely, and all of the flowers are around its base, and all the fig trees are the same way. These are not in competition. A lot of people think you have to hoe around a plant, and if you hoe around the plant, then more of the nutrients will be available for that plant that you're trying to grow. It's just absolutely not true. There's a symbiotic relationship between that plant and the flowers around it. And there's a purpose for growing wildflowers here also. This is the lemon tree that we have in there. It's a Myers lemon. And these are all kinds of different flowers in there. It's hard to tell from the big pictures, but here's some close-up pictures. We have all kinds of different flowers in this. And there's a reason why we have them. And that is to draw beneficial insects, bees. And this happens to be an assassin bug. Now, a friend of mine posted this on Facebook and said, "What is this?" And this is what it says. This looks like a variety of stink bug. And Virginia, our friend, says, "Yes, it's one of those immature stages of one of those bugs. Kill them all." And I said, "No, it's an assassin bug, and it's a beneficial insect that kills bad guys." And then they sent me this picture of him killing this bad bug. And they said, "Thanks, Chuck Branica. You were totally right. This is what we just found. this assassin bug had killed this bad bug that was eating their food. So you want to bring in these wildflowers into your garden so that you draw beneficial insects. This is some flowers that are under one of our pecan trees. My wife next to them. These are brown-eyed Susies, but I planted so many flowers out there that we'll have the brown-eyed Susies and black-eyed Susies, and then all kinds of different ones, and they come out on different stages all through the summer. This is the brown-eyed Susies in our on our orchard, and then here's some other kinds in the field. So this is a black-eyed Susan that kind of twisted up, and you'll see a bee on this particular black-eyed Susan. And all of these flowers will draw your good insects. Now here, I took a class. I took some classwork at the University of Florida posted. There were online classes, and it was about insects for farmers. And this entomologist said this. She said, there's only 1% of all insects that you would classify as an enemy to a farmer. But in the normal field, 97% of all bugs are actually very beneficial to the farmer. Why are you going to kill the 3%? Why are you trying to kill the 3%? Because in killing them, you actually kill all of the bugs, even the good with the bad. So anytime you use a pesticide, whether it's organic or not, you're killing these bugs that help you through this process. This is a ladybug. Now, she said this, when you see bugs attacking your plants, she says, resist the urge to do anything about it. Nature will do it for you. So here is a lady beetle. We call them lady beetles or ladybugs eating aphids on our grapevines, the new grapevines. You see the aphids? They will suck the life right out of a plant. My wife and I walked by them one day. We saw them, and I said, oh, we got aphids on our grapes. And I said, but this entomologist told us we should leave it alone. And pretty soon, the lady beetles will come along and eat them for you. So here's a wasp. This wasp is a friendly wasp that does this is on our persimmon trees. And here is another type of wasp that's on our blackberry bushes. And here is a spider attacking a moth. Now, moths aren't good because they lay a lot of caterpillar eggs. And this spider is eating. Now, if I sprayed these bushes with an organic pesticide, it would kill all of the good bugs and all of the bad bugs. And you know what would come back first? All the bad bugs, and they would destroy your crop. So we have learned just to leave it alone and wait. Somebody will come along and eat them. Now, these are aphids. Not aphids, but they're assassin bugs when they're young. Watch them.
Look how beautiful those things are. Those are baby assassin bugs. Those are beneficial insects that love to eat bad insects. Aren't they beautiful?
Now that's a pea that they're sitting on. So you can see how there's a pea, a field pea, and this is how big they are. They're really small, but they are very, very good killers of bad bugs.
Aren't they cute? They're just as cute as can be.
Okay, here is a lady beetle or a ladybug eating aphids. She's got one in her mouth and she's eating it. It might be a he. We call them ladies. I don't know why. But those are the aphids sucking the life out of my grapevines. But pretty soon, the bushes were full of lady beetles and they ate every single one of them. So just resist it. Just resist the idea that you should do something about it. This is a field where we had, in the very beginning, we showed you a field of potatoes and tomatoes. Well, I turned that field into an orchard of persimmons. And we have 64 persimmon trees here that are growing. And they have produced this year, for the first time, a harvest for us. I don't know what that hissing noise is. So these are different varieties of persimmon, 64 of these trees, and we irrigate them. This is what they're looking like. We've been eating them so far this year. And now here is a control. For scientists, they would understand what a control is. We planted this tree the same time we planted these trees. And you see the difference in size? Well, that tree was planted with no irrigation at all. If you plant a tree and you don't irrigate it and you just trust in the rain, you're going to lose half of them the first year. It's just going to happen. Unless you go out there and water it and water it and water it. The best thing to do is set up an irrigation. And this is what happens to the trees. This is the same age tree as that one, but this one gets 4 minutes of water every single day. And that's the difference. Now persimmon trees put roots straight down in the earth. And after about 3 to 4 years, you don't ever have to water it again. It'll be so deep. The same way with grapes. Once they get old enough, 4 or 5 years old, you don't ever have to water them again. Their root system is going 25, 30 feet deep in the earth, and they're getting all the water they need, and you never have to babysit them again. If you put the right kind of bushes in and you initially water them, irrigate them every day, you will have a beautiful, beautiful tree. So these are the different trees, and Nan's showing you the fruit, but that is a lot of difference between these. No water. I actually, we had a drought, and I would go and run a hose on it. But this is what we call a control. We want to see what would happen to that tree if you didn't have an irrigation system, and how would you compare it? Now, these are blueberries we put in last August, so they're a little over a year old. They produce quite a bit of blueberries the first year. We have them in a fenced area to keep the deer out. And that fence is electrified fence all the way around the whole acre that I cleared there. And we have orange trees in there, and we have pawpaw trees. We have pecan trees, or pecan trees if you're a Yankee. And so we have 212 blueberries, and they're being irrigated, and that's why they look so healthy. They are really healthy, and next year we'll probably get hundreds of pounds of blueberries on these bushes next spring. These are rabbit eye blueberries. Rabbit eye blueberries, they put roots down deep in the ground. Don't just go out and buy just any blueberry. We have southern high bush around here, but everywhere in the country you can grow rabbit eye blueberries. Buy the rabbit eye blueberries. People buy the southern high bush or the northern high bush because they come on earlier. They have very shallow root systems. Once these trees get 3, 4, 5 years old, we can shut off the irrigation and never have to irrigate them again. And that's really what you want. You don't want to be dependent on constant irrigation, constant feeding them, constant. These will grow in natural soil with absolutely zero fertilizer. And we just set it up as a biological grow site. And we have not put 1 ounce of fertilizer on them. But you see the new growth in the light green. So we haven't used 1 ounce of fertilizer on them. Now, you can grow in grow boxes. If you live in the city and you want to grow your own food, you can actually turn your backyard into grow boxes. These are beans that we grew in these grow boxes. We have a lot of grow boxes. In fact, as I'm getting away from grow boxes, I'm taking all these wooden ones out and getting rid of them. I'm going to keep these 4 concrete block grow boxes. But from now on, I'm changing the way I grow, and I'm growing in the soil, in natural soil. And I'm going to show you how that works. Now, my son, who lives in Walla Walla, Washington, he grows in grow boxes because he lives on a postage stamp, just like most people who live in towns or cities. And he only has a small backyard, but he filled them up with these grow boxes, and he grows. They almost never go to the grocery store during the spring summer and fall. They make almost 100% of their food out of these. They grow almost 100% of their food out of these grow boxes, lettuces and greens and peppers and tomatoes and all kinds of things out of these little grow boxes. And they just built them up, put rocks in between them, and they filled their whole backyard up with them. It's a wonderful thing. Okay, now this is the system that I'm currently growing with, and I'm converting my whole operation to, and it's called strip till farming. Strip till farming is done by this machine behind my tractor. It has a little tiller behind under each one of these hoods, and it only tills down about 3 inches. You could do the same thing with a regular tiller, but just go real shallow. You don't want to do this deep. A lot of people till deep, and you only want to do it in strips. So what you end up doing, you could do a whole field like this. And these are my grandchildren in Taiwan. This is a few years ago, and they are laying in a bed of perennial peanut, and it's in flower. All right, so a perennial peanut is a legume, and it only gets about 3 inches high. And if you could grow that in a field and then do the strip till in it, you would grow better food. And I'm going to show you how this all works. This is a new type of growing system that really, really works well. Now, I want you to see what they look like today. That's what they look like today. They were on a camping trip in Taiwan. And this is the whole family, my son on the left, and then the twins, and then his wife, Shelley. And she's Taiwanese, Chinese descent, but Taiwanese. This is my other son. He's a college professor at Walla Walla University. He teaches chemistry as a PhD in chemistry. His wife is a nurse, and these are his 2 children. And just so I could show you, but I just get back to this ground cover. If you could take your garden patch and grow a low-growing ground cover on it, in this area, we can't grow perennial peanuts very well because it's too sandy, but in Taiwan, they grow a lot of it everywhere. There's fields and fields of it. It's just gorgeous stuff, and it's really low. What we can grow is clover. So you take your garden patch and you disc it up or churn it up with your rototiller, and then you scatter seeds of clovers. And what you want to do is use white clover, red clover, crimson clover, micro clover, any kind of clover you can get, and just scatter it and fill it up. Then you do your strip till, okay? And don't worry, you don't plow up everything anymore. You don't leave bare ground anymore. And you do a strip till, and then you take your planter or by hand and plant your seeds in it. This is a planter that we have, and we put the seeds in it, and then they begin to grow. Don't worry that this grass is not in competition with your peas. In fact is, if the grass gets too deep, just mow it. That's all you have to do. Don't fight the weeds anymore. Quit fighting weeds. Just mow it. That's all you have to do. That's why I'm changing from grow boxes, greenhouse gardening. I'm going to field only. Now we have 28 acres, but if you have just a city lot, just put a bunch of grow boxes in there. But if you have land, do it like this. This works better than anything you could use. Now, this is as they're growing along. You see the grass and the peas. These are a field pea. I think this is pink-eyed purple holes, but I'm not sure. But it might be something else, but an acre pea. But you don't have to worry. The grass is not going to make these things not grow. Everybody thinks they have to take every single bit of weed out of your garden. You don't have to. Just mow it. That's all you have to do. Just mow a strip and keep it clean. That's all you have to do. And here they are flowering. And now here it is with the peas on it. The grass is still there. And this is the harvest. Okay. So this new method of strip tilling is a very, very effective way to grow. And this is the new way that they're teaching us in agriculture how to produce food. You plant a whole field of clovers, and and they are nitrogen producing, they're nitrogen fixing clovers that will feed your plants all of the nutrients you really need. Now, when I was taking this coursework with Dr. Elaine Ingham, she said in every grain of sand is all the nutrients you need to grow anything. All you need to do is have the microorganisms there to break that grain of sand down to make it plant soluble nutrients. If you kill it by putting fertilizers on it or by putting pesticides, herbicides, fungicides on it, then it will not produce for you. You then have to add fertilizer. But we're trying as Seventh-day Adventists to get away from fertilizers and go to natural gardening. Nan and I do not use any chemicals whatsoever, not to kill one bug. We let bugs kill bugs. We let the microorganisms grow our food, and we cooperate with nature instead of fighting nature.
To be aware of new videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to the Preparing for the Time of Trouble channel. For more free videos and downloadable audio podcasts, as well as handouts, go to www.preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com. Topic categories include recordings of live seminar presentations, country living, sustainable gardening, homestead remedies, how to be self-sufficient when the grid goes down, wild edible and medicinal plants, hydrotherapy, and end-time Bible prophecies. To take advantage of these free resources, go to preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com.